But I was one of those guys you mentioned that thinks they want to do it, but I'll just tell you flat out, I'm scared, man. I'm scared to even get choked the first time, or scared of getting hurt is another thing, right?
It's very humbling because you're never like, I know everything. If you ever meet somebody that says they know everything,
they're lying,
right? Yeah,
they're
exactly.
If you were gonna build a fighter, right, a mixed martial artist, not just a jiu-jitsu player, would it be jiu-jitsu to start, or would it be wrestling? Or if you were like in a lab, right, what would you pick?
Or a 12-pound sledgehammer being swung overhead full speed coming at you.
Holy
that's the
cow,
same power of one of his punches.
Yeah, that's my boogeyman. That's scary.
Yeah.
But if that guy comes running through the door right now, first of all, I'm getting behind you. Right? Hey, what's going on today, guys? Steve from the SaltyFresh Perspective podcast, checking in here with another episode. Coming back on the show today is the owner and head instructor of American Top Team in East Orlando, second degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Blackbelt, and former grappling world champion, Jayson Patino. Jayson and I have another amazing conversation, and I always leave his academy feeling more motivated than when I walked in. So please give it up for Jayson Patino. All right, well, sitting here, another episode of the podcast, back here, American Top Team, East Orlando, with Jayson Patino. Thanks for doing this, man. Round 2 here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How's things been going? It's been two months since I've been here, give or take, right? So.
Good. Really good, man. We just continue to grow the gym, focus on the students, family, training, just having fun,
Nice. Do you see that, and I didn't even ask you this last time, but did you have like a kind of a dive in business when the pandemic hit? I mean, did people... You can't really social distance doing jiu-jitsu, but did you kind of have a little bit of a decline there?
Absolutely, man. It was tough. I mean, we were forced to shut down for a full 2 months, so obviously at that point, you're not running classes in the academy. You're not getting that social interaction from the students like we usually do. So it was tough, but, I never doubted that we'd be fine, that we'd bounce back. We did some virtual classes during the time we were closed. So I was literally teaching Zoom jiu-jitsu classes in my living room at home, just to kind of keep some level of interaction with the students and keep them working out, the ones that were able to kind of log in and check in. And we had a lot of people who actually got better during our lockdown because they were just more focused and kind of dedicated. Wow. And obviously the majority, people who took a couple months off, and then when they did come back, were kind of trying to get back in cardio shape and get back to where they were with the timing.
Little rusty on the skills after taking a little bit of a break.
That was the majority for sure.
Wow.
And we still have students who haven't been able to come back for one reason or another. A family member, had asthma, they live with their grandparents or whatever, and they're a little bit sketchy, but now with the vaccine, believe it or not, more and more people are coming back. They're feeling more comfortable.
Good. That's making people more comfortable as far as getting back out in the community. But like you said, some people, they're still not going out and about, and, more power to them, underlying conditions, or they're with their families, or whatever the case may be. So good to hear that it's going good, man. But back in session, you got more people now back up to where it was, or getting close at least?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We were actually doing better than we were before COVID.
Dang,
man. We've been so lucky. Just the culture and the vibe that we have in the academy. I mean, everybody really is like family. We're here for the same reason. We're trying to get better. We're trying to help each other get better. So people feel that. They come in, and a lot of people during the lockdown were wanting, all of a sudden all these things were taken away from you, and I felt that people were just like wanting, they were ready to get into something. So people who maybe had thought about doing jiu-jitsu pre-COVID, they get locked down in their house, and then they're like, oh, I can't wait for things to open up. And they came in, basically flooding in once we were really back to kind of getting more to normal.
Awesome.
At one point we were drilling just with dummies, so no partners, and that was tough.
Yeah.
And then slowly, kind of step by step, as the restrictions were lifted, okay, now you can have a partner, just one partner, and then eventually kind of back to almost normal. So now when you come in, it's basically like it was before COVID, just normal training.
Awesome. I've been telling people this about you. Not only are you this world champion, but you seem to be a sound businessman also, right? Because I don't think a lot of people could have survived. I think you were the one that told me in the gym space, these things close down similar to restaurants a lot, right? Because they can't make it. But shutting down for 2 months, I bet you a lot of them didn't survive. So it kind of shows your business mindset there and adapting to different things.
For sure. The business systems helps a lot. We just want to provide the best quality service that we can. And I think that our students, they see that and they appreciate it. They come in the vibe, they feel safe, they're going to train hard. And then we're all in here to help our students, become a better version of themselves or improve the quality of life.
Right.
And once they kind of see that, they're on board, so that's ultimately at the root of everything. And then just systemizing the processes so everything's smooth and seamless for the students.
Yeah, I felt that family vibe. I stuck around for a few minutes the last time we did this, and you had some of your students coming in, but tight-knit group, man. Everybody wanted to come up to me and tell me how good of a guy you were and how things were going here. So it was cool to see that family side that you got going on here, man. But You almost got me. I was one of those guys that, I've been thinking about trying to do jiu-jitsu, and I think I told you I still haven't done anything, right? But I was one of those guys you mentioned that thinks they want to do it, but I'll just tell you flat out, I'm scared, man. I'm scared to even get choked the first time, or scared of getting hurt is another thing, right? Even if it's just something minor, to knock me out of the things I do every day. But I still want to do it, man. I'm just too scared, I guess.
There's a lot of people in that same situation, man. You're not alone. A lot of people are, at the very least, a lot of people are intimidated because it does sound really like barbaric. Man, seriously, go in there and choke people, get choked. Like, I don't want to get put in an arm bar or shoulder lock. And like you said, that fear of injury is real. But again, it does matter where you train at. So as I kind of mentioned a lot, is everybody here, we're trying to get better, but we're certainly not trying to hurt each other in the process. So we have a deep understanding that I'm here just like you're here to get better, but I need to look out for my partner, right? If I hurt my partner, if I'm just too overzealous and looking for a submission or a finish or going too hard and I hurt my partner, well, that's one less person I have to train with.
So it ultimately hurts you because you're taking out your partners that you have on a regular basis.
Yeah. So kind of once you get past that fear of injury, which, on rare instances it does happen. I'm not going to lie and say nobody ever gets injured, but honestly, it is very rare. And it's usually like, my finger, kind of tweaked up a little bit. I kind of sprained ankle. It's very rare that you see any serious injuries. And it's funny, I mentioned this, but it is true, man. When we have students who are playing basketball, who are playing soccer, that's where you see like, I broke my leg, I broke my ankle, I tore my ACL. Like, you see that's actually way more common in other sports, especially like football, obviously, I think. But in here, it's just little bumps and bruises that happen after years of training. You're going to get some little, bruises. You play tennis, you're going to get tennis elbow. You play enough of really anything, you're going to have little bruises. But more so, the fear of getting submitted, I think, is more of like an ego thing that sometimes people have to overcome.
It's something that I'd love to strip. I think we talked about that ego thing last time, and maybe that's it for me because I've never been in a fight. I've never even really, I want to knock on wood, like been injured before, and so I think that's the fear for me. And I'm glad to know that I'm not alone in that space, but man, I just something about, and I think and we're going to talk about some fighters, but watching like a guy like Khabib, you remind me of that guy because your fight that I saw over in UCF where you just smothered the guy, man. That would be the worst feeling ever, to be smothered like that, man. And maybe that's what scares me, the fear of not knowing what to do in that situation. But in the beginning, no one knows what to do. Nobody knows.
Exactly. And you're actually touching on a lot of points. This month, I've been really focused with my students, both kids and adults, because it's funny. A lot of people hear, martial arts, and they think it's like all kids, and we're actually a majority of adults. But a lot of the lessons are the same, and I'm so much obsessed with like self-improvement, right? You kind of, I'm seeing a pattern that like when somebody has a lot of things they want to fix about themselves, then they become, really, I love researching about, different ways to improve your mindset, different ways to improve your habits, right? How to just be a better version of yourself. And then I kind of teach and preach to my students, say like, hey guys, I'm doing this would work for you, right? Hey, I see that you're struggling with this would work for you. And the mindset part, as far as people are afraid of failure or of being uncomfortable, and the more you kind of look past that or move and work past this kind of like, okay, I'm going to lose, I don't want to lose or be embarrassed, and you learn and you realize that losing is actually a way to learn and to improve.
Right.
If you're not experiencing some form of loss, failure, you're really not going to be able to grow in whatever you're trying to do. So if you're really good at fishing, you really enjoy fishing, you go out there and you don't catch fish, you're going to learn, okay, well, I need to use a different bait, or I need to go to a different spot. I need to learn how to track better, or whatever. I obviously don't fish very often at all. So whatever that is,
on, man.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's how you get better. So in here, it is very humbling. You come in and you learn that no matter how big, strong, how tough you are, right? There's always somebody bigger, stronger, faster. But we're not just challenging you like that right off the bat. It's more so like accepting that there's a lot of things I don't know and I'm here to learn. Right. And then when you do get to that point, because we do build up kind of systematically to where you are training harder and you're actually trying to, apply chokes and shoulder locks and arm locks, any submission to your partner, they're doing the same to you. That the only way you're going to get better is if you do get put in a bad position, or if you do get submitted and you learn, okay, well, next time don't do that. Next time I got to improve on this. And it's that acceptance of temporary failure as a future learning experience. And once you switch that mindset, they call it a growth mindset, now you're a lot more enjoying of the whole process and the journey. You're not so much worried about, oh, I got submitted, I don't want to get submitted. It's like, well, that's part of it. One day you're the hammer, one day you're the nail, but you fast forward a year from now and you are a better version of yourself. You fast forward 2, 3, 5, 10 plus years and you're much more controlled, just experienced, technical, and confident version of yourself. And obviously the health benefits are there, the confidence that comes with knowing that you can defend yourself. So there's so many real things that come along with it. And then as well as just like the side effects of just, man, you look and you feel better.
Yeah. And I think I started to tell you, I interviewed this CEO that's out in Claremont, and he's 3 years in. I think he told me he's a purple belt. But his line stuck with me because he said he feels more comfortable being in his own body now that he's 3 years into jiu-jitsu, and he feels like he said, if he's kind of like me, never been in a fight, and he kind of wanted to learn if I had to defend myself, like what would that actually look like? But I've been meeting all these people that are pushing me back towards it, and you started talking about growth mindset. You can insert what you said about jiu-jitsu to like almost anything in life on that aspect too. And really the reason why I'm doing this podcast is to meet and people in the community, but get better myself at learning that you got to put work in to get better at anything that you want to do, right? So, and I'm learning that out here while I'm doing this podcast and meeting guys like you, you know. So, but I'm gonna do it, man. You know, I keep telling myself, and I'm like, you know what? Jayson said there's like a 7-day trial. Like, just go try it. Just go try it. But walk me through what it looks like in the beginning. I'm sure you have to do this a lot for people now that I know there's more people like me. But like day one, you come in here. I mean, are you drilling first? Like, is it like, are you learning certain maneuvers first, or like what's day one look like for somebody like me that's never done it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is very common. We have more people coming in the first time. Almost all of them have zero experience. Occasionally you have somebody, oh, I used to train over here, or I moved, I had experience, but most people don't have any experience. Or they
wrestled or something at least before.
Exactly, sometimes, right? So what we do is we have a beginners only class like most nights. So if you come in, there's a class designed specifically for you, people who are just starting off. So if you're on your first day, you're not even doing what the beginners are doing. You're basically just learning basic fundamental movements of jiu-jitsu. For example, here's how you fall, a break fall. So there's a proper way to fall where you don't hurt your wrist or your shoulders when you fall down, right? Or you don't hit the back of your head on the concrete or wherever you're falling. So it's called a break fall, and there's different ways to do it. We practice that. If somebody's on top of you, you have to learn how to escape your hips. We call it a hip escape, also known as shrimping. So you learn basic movements. Here's how you shrimp. Here's how you escape if somebody were on top of you. We explain the positions. So in jiu-jitsu, it's just like any other game. Right, the way I explain it, because I love games. I love playing games. I'm very competitive. If we play any game right now, basketball, little soccer, flip cup, quarters.
Rock, paper, scissors. You want to win.
Yeah, you really do, right? And so there's strategies and there's different ways to win, or even like a video game, right? Because jiu-jitsu is probably, it's more complicated than something just one motion, right? So to win, to beat Super Mario Brothers, any version, right? You don't just win the game, right? You have to first learn the rules to the game. Well, if you fall in those pits, you're gonna die. When you go in the sewers, you go into another little kind of area. The Goomba touches you, you're gonna get smaller or die. So you learn the rules of the game. So that's what we do in those first classes. We're teaching you, here's the rules of jiu-jitsu. Here's the positions, right? Here's your objective. You want to try to get past their legs, which we call the guard, right? And if you're standing, you got to take them down first, get past their legs, get to a dominant position, control your opponent, try to improve position. Then you isolate an arm, arm bar, shoulder lock. You isolate their neck, chokehold, whatever it is. So once you understand, okay, here's kind of the rules to the game. Well, how do I do it? Well, each one of these different positions has its own rules on how you kind of win or defend on these positions. So when you're standing, you got to learn how to take somebody down or defend. There's so many different ways to do that, whether it's wrestling, judo, or like jiu-jitsu. Some people just sit down to their butt and like come into my world here where I can try to submit you.
And some start that way. I think you were telling me that's where they want to be from the beginning, right?
Exactly. So if you're playing Super Mario Brothers, right, the first thing you got to do, you learn how to play, you got to beat that first board, right? So we'll call it standing. You beat that board. Okay, now we're moving on to the next level. And the next level, you get to that first castle, to beat this world or whatever it is. So that might be getting to like a more dominant position, but it's not over there, right? You still got to keep improving and kind of learning and growing. Sometimes it's faster. You can kind of get a submission quickly, but a lot of times it's a lot of this strategic battle and you're moving from level to level or board to board. So different positions, half guard, full guard, butterfly guard, full mount, back mount. And so when you learn kind of how to win these different individual games, then you win the overall game at the end.
You start to put it all together because you're going level by level, chapter by chapter. That's a good analogy, breaking it down like a video game, because like you said, if you just throw somebody into Super Mario, they're not going to know how, or anything, they're not going to know how to do
and
it.
they might beat the first board,
Yeah.
but guess what? You're not going to beat the game unless you put time in, unless you really practice and intricate, and you start to learn what not to do, what to do, and a lot of repetitions, right? Super Mario, how many times we've played that first board where my son, 5 years old, starting from when he was 4, he can beat that board like nothing. That first board, he's played it hundreds of times because he can't really beat the later boards. It's just too hard. But he knows when the Goomba's coming, he knows how to jump perfectly timed, right? Because he's done it hundreds of times, right? And the first few times he was getting killed by that first guy, right? Then he made it back past the first guy, then he fell in the pit right after, or the next guy got him, or then that turtle came around and killed. So it's like, it's funny. It's very simple repetitions, and eventually a 4-year-old learned how to beat those first couple boards of Mario, right? Then he kind of gave up. He didn't really keep trying past the castles. He's afraid of the castles. He didn't want to go in there. So eventually you don't want to get mounted. You don't want somebody on top of you, but hey, you're going to have to learn how to work through these bad positions that are a little bit scarier than when you're standing, and you can kind of use some more, athleticism or strength. But again, with that growth mindset, man, the whole idea is like, we're here to get better. And I want to challenge myself. I really encourage my students to challenge yourself. Get mentally stronger. You know what I mean? When we do these endurance drills, so it's just some simple like ab exercises, a warm up. And I'm putting 2 minutes on a clock, whatever. We're doing like hip ups or whatever, leg raises and nonstop, and you want to quit. And I'm telling you can't quit. This is that mental part. So there's so many different kind of facets, I guess, to jiu-jitsu. There's the technical side, the physical side, the controlling your emotion side. So when somebody's trying to submit you, you shouldn't get frustrated. You shouldn't get angry. Breathe. Think your way out of this problem. It's problem solving under stress, right? And then you kind of keep going into just, again, the overall mental side. You want to be mentally strong. Well, coach, I'm not very mentally strong. Well, that's what we're here to do. We're here to get better in all these different avenues.
Do you have people that don't know that they're not mentally strong? Like they learn that here, right? Where it's maybe they think they're mentally strong and they get in these situations, and that's something that they learn quickly, that maybe they're not that calm under pressure that they would want to be?
Yeah, we get a little of both. We get people who think that they're mentally strong, or they're just tough, and they are physically tough. But when they go with somebody who's more technical, and again, there's kind of learning rounds where we're training live and we're just learning, we're flowing, and maybe somebody bigger or more experienced is helping you. And then at a certain point, you want to challenge yourself. You want to go hard. You want to see, can I actually beat this guy? Can I submit him? And it's all friendly competition in the classes. But so the person who might think that they're tough or that they're mentally strong, and they get put in these bad positions, and they realize like, I got all, I started using muscle and trying to explode out. And you find out quickly in jiu-jitsu that strength just is not the answer. And maybe at first, when somebody doesn't really know much and you don't really know much and you're stronger, you can get by. You get somebody who's more technical, you can explode, push, all you're going to do is get tired faster. And then it's easier for them to do whatever they were doing, trying to improve their position on you or get a submission on you. So absolutely, we see kind of that side. And then we see people who didn't realize that they were mentally strong, and people who you'd kind of write off looking at them, like, this guy doesn't look like much, not very strong looking, not very tough. And then all of a sudden they kind of find themselves on the mat, and you find out, dude, you can't get this guy to quit. This kid, I don't care how big you are, and you're smashing him, you're trying to put pressure, trying to submit him, tough, resilient, he's always there, and it's hard to put him away. And it's like, wow. So people kind of on the flip end don't realize how mentally strong they are until they come in here and they actually challenge themselves.
That's got to be a pretty cool feeling, man. Not only to witness it yourself, but to be a part of people finding that out on the mat, right? Do you find that, and this is like, going to be a broad statement, but people from different walks of life, I mean, is there anywhere where it's like, man, these guys stand out? Maybe it's previous wrestlers or previous things. Do they typically, is there not a category of people, you don't want to put people in a box, but is there somebody that typically stands out as more prepared than others when it comes to first timers?
Absolutely. Wrestlers have a clear advantage when it comes to like combat sports, grappling, combat sports like this. Judo guys as well, but wrestling is different from a lot of combat sports. Well, it's different from jiu-jitsu for sure, in that it's a very much aggressive, non-stop action sport. So even if you only wrestle in high school, a year, you're going to have an advantage over somebody who did karate for 1 year and they come on the mats, or they did taekwondo, right? And again, the mentality that you're taught in wrestling is outwork your opponent, make them quit, push hard, and don't stop during it's a 5-minute match in high school, and then it goes up to 6-minute match in high school and a 7-minute match in college. But you're taught to go forward, don't stop attacking, don't stop moving forward. And then jiu-jitsu is passive aggressive. Right. So that's why wrestling is tough, man. It's very hard. It's rare you see like a 40-year-old doing, still competing in
Hard on the
wrestling,
body, yeah.
even practicing a hard. It's like, it's tough on your body. Jiu-jitsu, it's very common to see 50 and 60-year-olds training jiu-jitsu. Yeah. It's passive aggressive. You're just kind of flowing. We're forcing you to stay calm and relaxed. And then when you see an opportunity, okay, you kind of strike, you go for an attack, and it's back to staying calm, relaxed. Yeah. Completely different. So you get a wrestler in on their first day. They know nothing about our culture and our style. And wrestlers tend to be more aggressive, and they're going, and it can be overwhelming for somebody who's not used to that pressure. So they're going to have an immediate advantage. But it's funny, just like everything else, man, that'll get them so far. Yeah. If they also don't know how to stay calm and control their breathing and conserve energy, they're going to get exhausted quickly. To the guy who's relaxed, the technical guy, he's going to have to be more experienced and eventually can catch them in a submission or catch them, making a mistake, and all of a sudden they reverse the position on them.
Yeah. It seems like it gets to this point to where it's more playful than it is competition, and I think Muay Thai is like this. I heard somebody talking about it, where it becomes like they're just playing with each other. And is jiu-jitsu similar to where you probably can roll with some guys that you do all the time, to where it's like, yeah, you're competing and trying to win, but it's much more playful than where if somebody was looking at it from the outside, they're like, oh man, like this is intense. Does it have that feeling of play
absolutely.
for you?
No, 100%. That's what I think what part of the allure is once you learn how to play, because it's, again, another analogy that's probably more common in video games is chess. You're playing chess, right? And I think I talked about this last time, is how you have to know, also in chess, you have to know how the pieces move. So just know the rules of the game. And then you have to know the strategies and think multiple moves ahead. And the better you get, you're thinking multiple, like several moves ahead. When you're just starting off, you're barely learning how to move the pieces, right? You're maybe still used to checkers, kind of one move. Chess is much more intricate and strategic. So when I'm rolling with my students or training partners, it is absolutely, we are having fun, man. It is very much like when you're somebody who's good at basketball and they're just, and some people get a little bit more into it and talk a little bit more. Other people are very just kind of focused and quiet. Other person's over here in the learning phase. But it is absolutely fun because you're trying to do the moves and they're not letting you. They're trying to do their own moves. So it's kind of this friendly, competitive battle. But it is absolutely a game. And at the end of it, if you get submitted, you tap out, it's like, oh man, okay, good one. You got me. Let's go. Let's run it back. And other people are kind of like, hey, can you show me what you did, dude? That was crazy. I've never even seen that move. So there's a lot of like aha moments, kind of light bulb popping up when people get put in a submission or get put in a bad position because they're like, dude, that was awesome. How did you do that? And so there's that communication and respect for one another. So definitely is like a game, and it is really fun when you're training.
I like that. That's kind of the allure, the competitive side for sure. The idea of getting better at something, being more comfortable. If you had to, more of like a close distance. If you ever got in a close distance altercation, I think you would want some jiu-jitsu knowledge to be able to maneuver space in somebody's body a little bit better. But the idea of just having fun, playing and getting better and listening to jiu-jitsu people talk, it's almost like a different language you guys are communicating to each other as well. And again, another guy I was talking to about it, it's almost like even without words, you can communicate to each other. So pretty cool, man.
It is.
I'm selling myself. I'm trying to sell myself and lose that fear of it.
You are, man, definitely. And I think like when people come in and they watch a class, that definitely helps because you're like, oh, okay, we have like the first day guys over here doing their thing. People with like 1 month or less experience, give or take, and they're kind of they learn a little bit more. And then you might have the more experienced, the guys over here rolling. And you see, even when they're quote unquote rolling hard, like they're trying, rolling is that live training where they're actually trying 100% to submit each other or get to a dominant position on each other, right? But even when you're seeing that, it's like the guys, you can't tell if they're about to take a nap, if they're just like chilling and have a conversation, or if they're actually trying to choke each other. Like they're so calm, and the self-control is at such a high level that it's really impressive, the control that they have and how technical those rolls get, right? At the beginning, it's kind of just like, you don't really know technique at first. You're just trying what you can.
Right.
You tend to use more strength and athleticism at first.
Yeah.
As you learn more techniques and you get more strategic, the rolls are kind of almost less intense looking a lot of times and just cool, more advanced moves. And they're playing a deep game of chess compared to like the beginners who you're just kind of learning checkers and you're just kind of moving move by move and reacting.
So even just witnessing a class for some can kind of shed some of those uncertainties away coming into it, right? So
definitely.
How does the belt process work? I'm sure that comes up. I'm sure people come in here and they're like, I want to be this belt or that belt, or people know black belt, right? But what's that process look like? Because I know time, but is there like testing or how does the belt process work?
So depending on the academy that you go to, some academies have different processes. Personally, I we do a testing process for all the belts. So what we do is, like, in those beginner classes, we're teaching all the fundamentals, like just basic fundamental movements, the basic techniques, things that you just really need to know before moving on to a more advanced belt or being admitted to start training in the more advanced classes, where we're doing, just the techniques vary, and there's so many techniques. I mean, it's a never ending, it's an infinite game. That's cool. Simon Sinek says an awesome book there, an infinite game. So it's not like, oh, once I get my black belt, like, I won, or I'm the best, or I'm done. It's like, no, as a black belt, I'm still learning on a regular basis. My instructor, 6th degree black belt, Ricardo Laborio, still learning. Somebody comes in, they show them something new, and it's like, dude, you see it's very humbling, because you're never like, I know everything. If you ever meet somebody that says they know everything,
they're lying.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So with the testing process, it's like a quality control. So we know when you're at a certain belt rank that you know at least the minimum of a certain level of techniques, the foundation, right? And as you get to the higher belts, the techniques become more advanced, and you kind of have to understand more of like the sequences and series of attacks more so than individual attacks.
Like linking certain things together instead of just one move over and over again, linking them all together in sequence.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Chain grappling, right? And so with the testing process, again, it is a little bit nerve-wracking at times. People are like, oh, okay, wait, I got to know all these moves. But again, part of the idea is get used to being uncomfortable, right? Get comfortable where you used to be uncomfortable, right? So kind of shout out to David Goggins, right? Can't hurt me, man. So I love that mentality of like, you want to be, you want to be where you were uncomfortable in the past, you want to just be comfortable in that. And then all of a sudden you just kind of grow, right? And some people say there is no growth without discomfort, right? So if you're always in that comfort zone and you're chilling, you're not really growing. You're always, oh, I feel good. I'm confident. I can do everything I want to do. But when you put yourself out there, right? I'm uncomfortable, but guess what? You're going to grow. You're going to kind of learn something new, and it's okay. And then we kind of always trying to level up there. As we kind of continue with the testing process, part of it is we kind of grapple live with all the students. So we have like a big ceremony day. We come in and we celebrate, we roll, do lots of live training, and then basically everybody kind of gets ranked up there. So that's a fun day because it's just, kids, adults, everybody's been working hard. And testing we only do those ceremonies twice a year, but it can take anywhere from a year on average to a couple of years in between belts, depending on what belt you're going to. So it is, it is a long process, because jiu-jitsu, you don't get better and you don't learn jiu-jitsu, quote unquote, in a year or two.
Right.
It takes on average, they say about 10 to 12 years to get your black belt.
Wow.
So definitely a lot of dedication. And even again, when you get to that black belt, it's not like your journey's over. It's like, hey man, now you've earned that level, but you're always still learning and growing. Yeah.
Which is cool. There's not a lot of things. There are a lot of things like that, but where you can continue to get better and continue to advance and learning new things over and over again, man. That's not that this is a hobby for some, but if you were to get your time into a hobby, that's pretty cool, because there's no ceiling to what you can learn. And it sounds like there's new stuff coming out all the time too, that you got to be able to learn and adapt to also.
Definitely, and again, hobbies, a lot of people have hobbies, and the majority of our students are here, as a hobby. They want, and whatever their personal goal is, hey, I want to lose some weight, I want to get in shape, I want to get more confident, I want to learn how to defend myself, whatever it is. At the end of the day, you could be, playing basketball at LA Fitness or on, a rec league over here. A lot of people play, soccer leagues, the men's leagues over 30 or 40 or whatever. And that's fun. That's great. But the beauty of this is not only do we have that same camaraderie, not only are we getting the same fitness benefits, but that level of self-control and that martial artist lifestyle, right, also injected to this. And at the end of the day, you can play soccer for 10 years and you get in a fight, man, it's just something totally different.
Right.
We're having fun, we're getting in shape, we're meeting new people, and we're, training, getting good physical benefits. But if I get in a fight, I literally can kill somebody with my bare hands. Yeah. So it's like you really have some true confidence that comes along with training here, that if God forbid something ever does happen, I'm not saying, we absolutely train to not get in fights, to avoid. And I even talk specific scenarios on the street, man, ways to get away, be aware if there's multiple attackers and things like that. Like we do get into some of those realistic scenarios, but there's something to be said about investing time and energy into something that actually could help you if you ever needed to protect you or your loved ones.
For sure. And that is part of the allure for me. We both got kids, part of the allure is if I had in a situation where protection needed to be, I'd like to be more comfortable, not just thinking I could throw my hands or throw my feet or whatever the case may be, but knowing for sure. And to your point about avoiding, for me, it's not like I've never been in a situation where a fight might be there, but I always just use my mouth, man, and talk my way out of it, calm down the situation, whatever the case may be, because in my head, like, man, I've never been here before. If it goes to that next level, like, what the heck is going to happen? So that's the allure for me, is that unknown scares me enough to where I pay attention enough to where I'm like trying to convince myself to put the time in. That's the other thing for me is, I think I told you this last time, but I find time more valuable than money, right? If I'm going to do something, I want to make sure I put and can continue to put the appropriate amount of time that it's going to need, because this isn't one of those things you just come in here for a week or 2 weeks or whatever and think that you got this. I'm sure some people probably think that, but that wouldn't be me, man. I'd want to come in and know that like this is going to be a couple years where I'm going to be dedicated the time into this. Does that make sense? You probably need at least
absolutely.
A few years into it.
Absolutely, the commitment, man, and that's where a lot of people kind of get tough, and life gets in the way.
Sure.
So just like anything, whatever your goal is going into it, you want to set that goal and plan for those obstacles, because, we do have families, we do have careers, we do have other things going on, and birthday parties, or, you get sick or something happens, whatever, there's always going to be something. So when you kind of set that goal, then you're more likely to kind of be able to maneuver those adversities or those obstacles as they come.
Yeah, but what you learn here, yes, physically, but more mentally, you talk about it a lot. It seems like it would help you in so many aspects of your life if you allow it to. If you allow, the martial artist mentality to get into your life, it seems like it could help people in a lot of different spaces. So if you were going to build a fighter, right, a mixed martial artist, not just a jiu-jitsu player, would it be jiu-jitsu to start, or would it be wrestling? Or if you were like in a lab, right, what would you pick for where to start?
So absolutely, you got to have jiu-jitsu. But man, like if we're really just picking, that wrestling base is, it's undeniable at this point, man. The guys that have wrestling are a force to be reckoned with, because they decide where the fight goes. Yeah. Right. So you've seen world level jiu-jitsu fighters in MMA, and if they can't take you down, they can't use their jiu-jitsu. So what's the point of all that, right? So I think wrestling as a base is arguably one of the best, if not the best. Not only is it the ability to take somebody down or not get taken down, because they can control if the fight's going to be standing or on the ground, but as we said earlier, that mentality, right? Yeah. Joe Rogan actually really talked about this a lot years ago, how just when you're that wrestling mindset, man, it's just really hard to substitute that mindset, that work ethic. They also have the ability of knowing how to properly diet and cut weight. Which a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, they're not really cutting that much weight, or they're not, in karate or boxing. There are weight classes, but wrestlers, like, that's what you're bred to do, is to work hard, never quit, outwork your opponent. And you have to get down to whatever certain weight class to where you're lean, you're shredded, getting down to that weight. So just that experience and the competition experience that comes with that. Now you can start mixing in, okay, so for sure now that you want them to be really good at jiu-jitsu. So if you're wrestling experience and you have good jiu-jitsu, okay, that's going to be a pretty dangerous little combo there. But we need striking, right? So Muay Thai kickboxing absolutely has been proven is arguably the best striking martial art. Little differences.
Why is that? You hear that about Muay Thai a lot. Like, if you're going to learn striking, this is kind of the way to go. Is it? I was reading about the stance of it seems to make it more favorable for different things. But why is Muay Thai, in your opinion, the way to go when it comes to striking?
It's a great question. So now there is an argument to be made for karate and or boxing, and where I like both of those, they both bring good benefits. For example, karate, they move a lot. They bouncing in and out, so it's harder to hit a good karate
Never
guy.
Standing still.
And they switch stances. So that is really good. They're very fast, because it's a lot of times more point sparring, and certain types of karate are not really point sparring, but still, there's something to be said about that. Right. And then boxing, the ability to have these fast, tight combos when you're, in that close range. So definitely, that dirty boxing and just kind of understanding quick movements and protection, moving your head, the head movement, very much beneficial. The thing about Muay Thai that makes it really good for MMA is, for example, in karate, you're taught to kick with your foot. Right? 32 small little bones in your foot. Right? Well, if I go to kick you, and even if you don't know what you're doing, you just kind of, ball up to protect, my foot hits your elbow or forearm.
Breaking bones in
Break
your
my foot.
Yeah.
Okay, so now how effective am I going to be with a broken foot? Well, Muay Thai.
No more moving. The karate movement's gone.
Muay Thai, you're taught to kick with your shin.
Oh, shin.
So you got a baseball bat swinging at your arms.
Oh, boy.
Right? So now you're even that same scenario, boom, I just broke your elbow or broke your shin.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sorry, broke your forearm or your elbow, my shin is good. So that's one of the main differences. The other thing with Muay Thai is it's known as the art of 8 limbs, right? 8 limbs. So in boxing, you have 2 weapons, 1 and 2, right? In Muay Thai, it's 1, 2, right? 3, 4. If we're in close distance, 5, 6, and even closer distance,
elbows.
7, 8. So you're taught to use your entire body as a weapon.
All your weapons.
Right. And if we're in really, real close, they even use what's called the tie clinch. They're grabbing the back of their head and they're throwing knees to the body, knees to the face.
Yeah.
So it is a very complete striking martial art. Right. So striking only.
Yeah.
And it really is all about like devastating power strikes, as opposed to kind of like point sparring in and out.
Right.
Right. Taekwondo, you're punching, completely unrealistic.
For points.
Exactly.
Versus in Muay Thai, you're throwing your weapons to do damage.
Exactly. So your hands are up, you're a little bit tighter, right? But it's hard to say that only Muay Thai, because you get a karate guy who's a lot faster and they can be a problem, right? Also karate, they stand sideways to throw these side kicks. That leaves them wide open for the leg kicks. Yeah. Muay Thai, you stand more straight up, and the part of the system is blocking those leg kicks,
checking
because
them,
they throw
right?
leg kicks, exactly, checking them. Yeah. Same thing, boxers tend to stand very sideways and their head goes really low. Well, if you're only a boxer, you're more likely to take a knee or a kick to the face if you're moving your head that low. Muay Thai, you tend to be kind of more upright, and then the head movement would just kind of be within certain movements there.
Yeah. I like boxing, the technical side of it, but it's taking away the full fight. Like if you want to, like fighting, I heard this the other day, it's like a universal language. Like if somebody puts their hands up, you know like what's about to happen, what's about to take place. But boxing, taking away all the weapons, I can only watch it for a little bit of time. You know what I mean? Like, do you find yourself in that, or is that like a common thing that people think? Like, I like how technical it is, and I'd love to learn that side of striking as well. And you see this a lot. And I know we were going to talk about this with some of these like celebrity boxing matches. You got these like YouTubers that, like Ben Askren is fighting Jake Paul coming up, right? Like to take away Ben Askren's wrestling and to put him as, even just seeing him hit the bags, I watched a couple of videos of him. Jake Paul looks like 10 levels above him, in my opinion. But what's your take on that fight coming up, man?
Man, that's actually going to be entertaining. It's so funny. Like here we are, and there's these exhibitions are making a comeback. It seems like people, but people want to see him. I mean, this guy, Jake Paul's got millions of followers on social media. Yep. Ben Askren has a huge following in the MMA world, but it is very intriguing because, like you said, Ben Askren is a he was on the Olympic team for wrestling, right? He was undefeated in Bellator. He was the champion. 1FC, he was a champion, undefeated. And it wasn't until he came to the UFC that he lost those 2 fights, right? He got knocked out in like
Masvidal,
5 seconds by Masvidal, that flying knee, and then he lost to Damian Maia. So 19-2, still is a good record, but it was almost all on his wrestling. He would take you down early on. He would just kind of smother you. Then he got better at taking you down and ground and pounding and finishing fights. But he never was known for striking. His striking was pretty garbage, if I'm honest. Again, like the guy as a wrestler, as a competitor, but striking wise, not very good. So then all of a sudden you get this YouTube guy, right, who's got a huge following. And he hits hard. He's known for hitting hard. He's got power in his hands. I don't know really how technical he is, like for real, against like another like good boxer. But the fact that you have Askren, who's not a great striker, and against this kind of young guy who's just hits hard, and he just talks and talks, man. It's cringy.
Both
to watch.
of them brothers. It's cringy. That's a good way to put it. It makes
really,
you.
It's like, oh man, in the videos he puts out, it's Jake Paul, man. So I've just seen little things here and there. I don't follow him. I don't really know too much about him before this, his last fight, where I guess he knocked out Nate Robinson.
The basketball player, right?
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
But I want to see. I mean, if I had to put money, man, I think that it would be too easy. So my money would go with Askren still. Right. And the reason is there is still rules. Exactly. He can still just come in and clinch. He can slow him down, and he can basically quote unquote wrestle, but standing. So he can kind of slow him down. He can tie him up. The referee's going to keep separating him. I believe that's a smart play for Askren. There's no reason he should just stand out in distance and let this guy throw
swing
hands.
With that guy, right? Because he's a young guy. He's an athletic guy. You can tell from it. And again, I don't really know too much about him. That whole world's been brought to me because I pay attention to fighting, right? But he's got a lot of money, right? And he's got a lot of time. So back to your comments earlier, if he's legitimately putting the time in and using that money to get people in to teach them the right thing, I wouldn't want to stand in front of him if I'm Ben Askren, right? But can you lose points for clinching too much? I don't know how that works in a bocce match. But if the referee separates you, can you lose points by clinching too much?
Not really. They're still going to look at like who's landing. So even if it's, and whatever, I don't know if they're doing 2-minute rounds or 3-minute rounds or what they're doing, but I mean, whoever's, landing more essentially, but when they kind of start with the little scrum and kind of wrestling around or kind of pummeling for position, that's kind of just like a neutral, okay, wait till they break and now see who's landing when they actually break and start throwing.
Got it.
So it's still going to boil down to that. Yeah. And Askren certainly can land, he can throw something on the way in, kind of like you would for a takedown, but then just clinch. So it's interesting, you know, who knows? You know, you really don't know until they get in there. And you can say all you want that, Jake Paul's going to kill him or this guy. But you really don't know, because one thing that we know for sure is Ben Askren knows how to dig deep.
Right.
As we were talking about that mental strength. He's not going to quit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You literally have to put him to sleep like Masvidal did.
Yeah.
And funny enough, Masvidal is helping coach Jake Paul for this fight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he brought him in. He's posting all these videos.
All kinds of bad blood. He's bringing. Man.
And
he's a smart guy, man. He's a smart guy.
He really is, man. He really knows how to get people to tune in and to watch him. So they're being so corny, just kind of with the whole, you know, Jake Paul is putting videos out with Masvidal teaching him his little combos and his little striking kind of movements. He's like, I'm going to beat your time. I'm going to knock him out faster than 5 seconds. It's like, come on, man. Yeah, come on, dude.
So, people just start running their mouths to see what sticks and gets all the hype going. But selling tickets, man. You know, and these guys are going to get paydays for it. So regardless of what you think, both of them are going to get paydays for it. And cool. You know, more power to them. But I heard GSP on Rogan say this, and I wanted to get your opinion. He didn't want it to look bad for MMA. Like if Jake Paul comes out there and let's say just knocks him out. Yes. Let's say he Nate Robinson's him, right? Do you think that would be a bad image for MMA in general?
I think it would, man. And multiple people are saying that, because it's kind of like, if you're on the outskirts, you're not like a diehard fan and you don't really know Askren, you don't really know but you just see, okay, YouTuber versus MMA star, you know, MMA champion. You don't really know the history or how bad Askren is at striking. Absolutely, he's kind of representing MMA. Yeah. So people are like, Askren, please knock this guy out, or please win this, like, for the sake of MMA's reputation. Yeah. So I think for a common, just kind of person who's watching, who doesn't really know deep, I think absolutely it would look bad on MMA.
Okay, yeah. And I wanted to get your opinion on that one, because you could feel it a little bit if it goes the wrong way. Yeah, that could just be like, something to overcome maybe in some conversations. But the real people would know what's up. Because if you flip that switch and you make it, I wanted to get your opinion on this. If you make it an MMA match, hands down, Askren all day.
Oh, of course.
What about a kickboxing match? I mean, if they just even changed it into that aspect, does that change it more to Askren's favor because he has that? Or
it could, in kickboxing, they can do like sweeps where you can like catch a leg and like trip them and knock them down.
Okay.
So depending on the scoring system, like Muay Thai, or there's like Sang Chao, there's other kind of styles of striking where, even though it's just striking, when you take somebody down off of a kick or you catch a leg or whatever it is, you can kind of get points for that, or it just looks good, or you tire them out or whatever. So that would at least give him more of a chance, I think. But it's funny I'm saying that, and Askren has like no kicks. I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Doesn't really have kicks, so it's not like he's all of a sudden going to start coming in and throwing kicks. But at least it would incorporate more of like the ability for him to grab onto something, maybe. Yeah.
But if like and this goes back to the wrestling base, right? Because if you have that skill, it gives you it. And I've noticed this just being an MMA fan for a long time, that the GSPs, the Khabibs, these guys, heavy wrestlers, like they come in and control which way it goes, right? But if you're like a Jordan Burroughs or a Kyle Dake, if you come straight into MMA, right, do those guys stand a chance just relying on their wrestling and takedown defense themselves? Like, do they...
Yeah, to a certain point, man, definitely is going to help, because at that high level, you're going to be able to outwork most people. You're going to be able to take somebody down. It's going to be hard to get a hold of you to really try to put submissions on. But again, that's up until a certain point. When you start going to a certain really high level grapplers or high level strikers with good takedown defense. I mean, nowadays everybody's training wrestling, or at least wrestling defense. Jiu-jitsu, at least jiu-jitsu defense. So you get somebody like Kyle Dake, who, again, was unbelievable to beat Jordan Burroughs. So I think they were saying like for 10 years, Jordan Burroughs hadn't lost to an American or entered into a world championships or Olympics.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right. So he had beaten every other American. So in 2012, he won gold, right, in the Olympics, and he'd won the world championships a few other times as well.
5 times, I think, 5-time world champion, something like that. Yeah.
And then here's Kyle Dake, who unfortunately has been in that same weight class for many times. He is a world champion also, but had never beaten Burroughs. And then here we are, man. After 10 years, he finally gets the win, beats Burroughs as he's kind of on the tail end of his career. But, you got to think that Burroughs is obviously was trying to get on this Olympic team and go win one last gold. Right. It's got to have been his goal.
Right.
So it's a big deal for Dake to finally kind of overtake the king, per se. Yeah. And then now he's got this shot to go and try to win his own Olympic medal.
That's awesome. I was watching that one, and it was early on. I seen a couple Jordan Burroughs matches. He didn't look like the same guy in the beginning. I don't know if it's just because Kyle Dake got that much better. I've never seen them wrestle before, but that was an interesting match to watch. And because I caught Jordan on Rogan, right? I'm like, man, this guy, he was cool to listen to. You got a similar guy like yourself. I thought, your mindsets were similar listening to him. But what does a guy like that do now? I mean, after because he's what, in his 30s, right?
Yeah.
He's probably not going to be able, 4 years from now, do that again, right? So for wrestling, what's next for a guy like Jordan, you think?
Man, it really, at that point, I mean, his best bet is probably going to be some level of coaching, or I don't know, like businesses or sponsors, or kind of, but he definitely has some options. Now, of course, if he did want to try to transition to jiu-jitsu or MMA, there is some ways to make money there. But again, he is still kind of older, because I remember years ago after he won the 2012, there was talks of like, hey, was he going to transition over? And, he kept going with the wrestling route. Yeah. Whereas somebody like Henry Cejudo, Olympic gold medalist for the U.S., who then turned
weight class lower, couple lower, two lower?
He was like a 25er and 35er,
lighter guy, right?
And he ended up winning the UFC championship belt in the 25 and 35 weight class. Yeah. So I mean, he made that transition and he did great, but Burroughs kind of kept going, trying to get at the wrestling. So he's a little bit older now. Yeah. I think, like they were asking him what's next, and he's like, man, go back to family. I don't know, we'll kind of reevaluate kind of thing. But
back to the drawing board almost.
At least he does have options. 20 years ago, that was it, man. Yeah. Wrestling in the Olympics is the pinnacle, and you're kind of done.
Yeah. It seems like, where's Khabib from? Dagestan? Russia? Yeah. Is that in Russia? Somewhere over there?
It's like old Russia. Yeah, Eastern Europe. Yeah.
But are they in the Olympics? Because it seems like there's this wide rise of people coming from that world. I can't remember the other guy in the UFC that's from that similar area. Oh, my God, his name skipped my mind. But it seems like there's this whole smother wrestling community coming out of there. So
yeah, man, they're so tough. I actually don't know if Dagestan itself is in the Olympics, but I know Russia, they always are really good wrestling, and anybody in those Stan countries are usually they put out really good wrestling.
Like with a stand on it. Yeah.
But Chechnya, Dagestan, I mean, they all are just tough wrestlers, and they kind of just train. The level of intensity is just so hard, man, and this is kind of their lives. They're all in, and I know that in Russia that it's like government sponsored as far as the training. So like all you do is train full time, and that's all you got to worry about. So it's not like over here you get a lot of guys who they're working their 9 to 5, or they're trying to get out of their 9 to 5, working part time to train, and or if you are just training full time, you're scraping by. They're kind of taken care of, and they have just a good history of good wrestling. So you get guys like, now I've known that area was really good at wrestling for years, but over the last few years, they've really been starting to kind of move up and getting to championship level. So somebody like Khabib kind of opened a lot of people's eyes up, right? But there's other guys now. As a coach, he's coaching a lot of guys also from that area, and they're all doing well. They're all winning as well. Yeah. So man, definitely is just like a tough area to grow up in, and you see kind of the output that you're getting, like the result of it.
That kind of pressure makes diamonds, right? These guys are coming out of that, and it seems to be a different level, and again, just looking at it from the outside, seeing the couple guys that are coming in there now. But I heard GSP say that he was afraid of Khabib, like on Rogan's podcast. I thought GSP was always one of my goats. Like if you want to have the goat conversation, I feel like you got to put GSP in there. But to hear him say that he feared, and he said he didn't fear losing. It was more of like what I said earlier about like getting humiliated, like getting smothered, and like this individual is a different thing than you, like a different level than you, right? So to hear him say that he had fears about it was interesting to me. But do you have people that, or for you, when you went into some of your first fights, I know you trained fighters, like, do people come to you and be like, man, like I'm like really scared to go into this fight? Is that a normal thing that people talk about? It seemed rare for GSP to talk openly about being afraid.
It is, man. Believe it or not, it is a lot more common than you would think. I think what happens a lot is a lot of people will they'll hide that, they'll hold that back. They won't share that they're afraid. You get someone like, there's a multiple-time world champion, Rodolfo Vieira, who was fighting in the UFC. And in his last fight, I guess Joe Rogan was commentating, and Joe Rogan said, well, Rodolfo admitted to me that he was actually the most scared person in the whole UFC, right? You see this guy jacked, shredded to the bone. I mean, just killer on the mats, like one of the best in the world that you can find with jiu-jitsu and grappling, gi or no gi training. And here he's in the UFC. He was undefeated. And sure enough, in that fight, he almost submitted his opponent several times. And the guy was really tough. He kind of did just enough to survive and not get submitted. And by the end of the fight, man, the guy started coming back. He started landing shots. He busted up the guy, Rodolfo Vieira, and eventually finished him. You can see that he had kind of mentally broke, right? So he got pulled into deep waters, which he rarely had got put into, and all of a sudden he got finished, and it was like devastating for him, right? So you start to see that mental side.
Yeah.
So now he's somebody like GSP who would admit it. He admitted that he was scared and that he was like terrified of being in there where people were actually throwing strikes as opposed to grappling, which was kind of more his world. But GSP's always kind of been open about that, right? So he tells a story on Joe Rogan also about like how he used to get bullied, and that was kind of his story, right?
Yeah.
So he got bullied by this guy, and years later as a champion, he's back in his hometown and he sees the bully like on the side of the road, and he's like, right? And he's kind of like, dude, like what happened? You were this. He keeps talking about how the guy was like this good-looking guy, and everybody liked him, and this and that, and he bullied GSP. But here, GSP used that to kind of become the best fighter in the world at the time. So that mental side is again such an important part of competing. And if you're not, willing to look in the mirror and acknowledge, okay, I need to work on these things, or like I have doubts, I have fears, then they're just going to kind of stay buried in the back of their head, and they will manifest themselves at some point. And a lot of times is when you get drug into these dark, muddy waters.
They show their heads.
And then all of a sudden at the worst possible time when you need to pull through and you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I am kind of scared. Maybe I'm supposed to lose, instead of pushing through and overcoming adversity. So that mental part is just so important to identify, say, hey, yeah, this is scary. It's supposed to be scary. You're being locked in a cage with another man who's trying to kill you.
You're in a fight. Like, somebody's trying, and he's been training for this for years,
Yeah. So that first part, and again, you can replace that word with anything else, MMA or jiu-jitsu, you replace with something else. But if you can be humble and admit, okay, I'm weak in these areas, or I need to work on this, or this is my biggest fear, then you can address it and fix it. If you try to just pretend like it's a non-issue, man, it's just kind of buried down in there, and eventually it will come up.
But people get good. I was this guy, and again, part of all this is trying to get past this. Is people get really good at kidding themselves, lying to themselves that, oh yeah, I can handle this, I could do that. When in reality, maybe people are more scared and they're afraid to admit it than maybe, like you said, if you're not afraid, I would be more worried if you're not afraid to fight somebody. Like, what kind of psychopath are you?
There's some very special people. So that's why if you're one of these guys that makes it to that level, man, like you have to have had something a little bit different, something a little bit special if you kind of thrive in those moments. But a lot of people, honestly, it just takes that work ethic to get to that point. They've trained, they've practiced, they've improved, they've shored on those weaknesses to get to that point. There is some naturals, of course, right? But that is fewer and far in between than the guys who are just working hard, right? In the mental training program that I wrote to help my students kind of deal with and overcome and improve their mental strength and preparation, I really focus a lot on, well, definitely the ability to deal with losses and not put pressure on yourself to lose, but a lot about like just really understanding that these weaknesses or that we see, it's okay, it's common, you can kind of overcome this, and being able to again be honest and say, okay, if I can identify that I want to work on this, or that I'm afraid of this type of person. So a lot of times we also have like a picture of what this big boogeyman would look like in our head, right? And so for me, I used to kind of have the idea of this just big, jack, short, stocky guy like that. Those guys are just really tough to kind of beat in certain situations. It's harder for me I can't out-muscle them. I have to really be technical, and I would visualize and kind of use positive affirmation statements to kind of see like, I can beat these guys. It doesn't matter. It's still just me versus another person. Right. So the first step is kind of admitting it. And then the second step is then working on it. You know what I mean? And it's okay, man. We all kind of have these similar feelings. Like, you know, it's, again, rare if you just step in there and you're like, oh, I'm not afraid. I want to fight somebody.
I'm calm. Yeah, that would be a whole different story, right? But interesting that there's some people that are either built that way or they already got that mindset, because whatever the case may be, right? The boogeyman for me, and this guy's getting a lot of press right now, Francis Ngannou, man, is oh my gosh, talk about just a massive guy that came through so much adversity. We were talking about some of the challenges that people grow out of, but what he's come through, salt mines or whatever it was over in Africa, man. But what's your take on him, man? He's getting a lot of press right now, but what's your take on him?
Yeah, man, that guy is an inspiration. So I think now for a while people have known like, oh, watch out for this guy, because he was known for his power. But man, his story is just unbelievable. Like the more I kind of did more and more research on him, like a lot of people didn't realize like he was homeless just a few years ago. Right. And he had actually gone from Cameroon to Morocco, and then Morocco trying to come over to Paris. Like he had been put in jail in Paris for 2 months because he had come over illegally. Right. And this is something a lot of people are dealing with over here if they're coming from South America, Central America, wherever, and coming into the States. But he actually got locked up. But once he was in Paris, the way he describes it is he felt like free. He didn't care that he had no money. He was living on the streets in Paris, and he was like, I'm free. There's opportunity here, right? Where he was in Cameroon, there was no real opportunity for him to try to follow his dream of being a fighter. Right. And I guess at the time, this is only like 2013. It's not like we're talking about like in the 90s or something, right?
Recent. Yeah, recent.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. And I guess so he thought like boxing. And I guess in Paris, he met somebody who told him about, hey, like you should check out this MMA gym. And literally in 2013, he's like, what's MMA?
Oh my
He's
God.
like, what's mixed martial arts? And like, dude, you need to go check these people out.
8 years ago,
Right?
7 years ago. Damn.
So he starts like changing focus from boxing to let's try this MMA thing. And then all of a sudden he starts winning. And I guess he like won a tournament. He made some money and he's just like writing home to mom, like, hey, yeah, we can eat good tonight. And like he went from nothing, you know, salt mines in Africa.
Yeah.
Homeless, right? Being arrested, being homeless, to fast forward a few years and he's UFC champion, man. Like if that's not a success story, I don't know what is.
What a shining light. We were talking about MMA looking bad if Ben Askren goes down, but what a positive for MMA and what it can do for somebody coming out of a tough situation in jail, right? Feels free because he's out of where he is, but gets in with the right people. And now look at him, man. You know, if it's money you're after, cool. If it's fame you're after, he's got it, cool. But just knowing that you overcame what he overcomes got to be a cool feeling, right?
Absolutely. And of course to add to kind of to you know to I guess how you'd say to make the plot thicker, right?
Yeah.
Is a few years ago when he first fought Stipe Miocic, who was a champion at the time, and he lost.
Yep.
So, you know, you would think that, you know, a lot of people, again, without that proper mindset, like he'd worked that hard to get there. He made it to the title fight and he lost, right? But what'd he do? He just went back. He kept training. He kept improving. He kept getting better and better. He was still relatively young in the sport. He won. He earned his next title shot. And here he goes. Here he is. So that kind of makes it even better. You know,
yeah,
he comes in and he knocks him out.
Man.
Second round, yeah.
Why do you think it is that heavyweights, it doesn't seem, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, that they get as much attention as some of the other weight classes in MMA? I mean, people know who Stipe is that are in it, but it doesn't seem, he's not a Conor, right? He's not a Khabib, he's not a GSP. Is it heavyweight specific or is it just like individual specific? Seems like heavyweights aren't as, it's not as popular, I think.
It's weird, right? Because sometimes it is, right? Because the cool thing about heavyweight is you're considered, quote unquote, the baddest man on the planet because you're the champion of the biggest. So there's something to be said about that. But like history has shown that heavyweight division does turn over a lot. Like it is not, you don't see as many like a GSP who was a champion and defended it for so long. Anderson Silva defended for so long. So there is more turnover. And I think Stipe Miocic was the winningest heavyweight of all time, which is kind of crazy because it didn't seem like he was champion for that long. But a lot of it has to do with the personality, believe it or not. So Conor made a name for himself because of his mouth, but then he backed it up with the skills, right? You see other champions that are really well known. Well, Khabib was undefeated, so people kind of knew who he was. You know what I'm saying? GSP was kind of your poster boy for the UFC. You know what I mean? So you see kind of these different people with the personalities tend to kind of get a lot more of the attention. But it's like Stipe, as great as he was, and he was like a firefighter, and people loved him, respected him. He was kind of like the people's champ also. I guess he just wasn't like this huge draw, like somebody who's just running his mouth, or people, or even like Anderson Silva. You know, love him or hate him, people wanted to tune in. Jon Jones.
He was flashy. You know, Jon Jones opens up his first fight with a flying knee or something when he was super young, right? But what do you think about that fight, man? You think that's going to happen? Jones versus Ngannou?
I really hope so, man. I really hope so. Right now they're just stuck on money. I guess Jon Jones is really asking for the money, but yeah, that's definitely the fight everyone wants to see.
Who do you got, man? Who do you got?
I would give it to Jones. Man, he's just more well-rounded, and people forget he's a wrestler, so he could take Ngannou down and take a lot of that striking power away. Yeah. But we already seen what Ngannou can do if he lands one shot. So
I mean, we've seen that a few times, right? He's like 10 knockouts, 11 knockouts, something crazy, man. Those fists come flying. But I'm with you. I think Jones, if he wants to put it on the ground, I think he can. Has Francis ever really been tried on the ground? I don't know him well enough.
Not much.
To know.
If he has, not for a long period of time. There's a really cool stat that Dana White was saying at a press conference. I guess they measured Francis Ngannou's power in his punches. You see that?
No.
He said it was something silly, like it was like, is he the same amount of force as like a Ford Escort going like 85 miles an hour and hitting you or something? Or a 12-pound sledgehammer being swung overhead full speed coming at you. That's the same power of one of his punches.
Yeah, that's my boogeyman. That's scary.
Yeah.
But if that guy comes running through the door right now, first of all, I'm getting behind you. Right? Well, what if you had to fight somebody that big in a real situation? What would you utilize and what would you try to do?
Man, well, number one thing is just distance management. So I'm not trying to get in a fight with anybody really, but if somebody's really coming at me and it's happening, I mean, your best bet with big guys is to get behind them. Okay. If you can take somebody's back, it doesn't matter how big they are because all they're defense and
Is
their
in
arms or
front of
legs
them.
are forward, you get behind them. So absolutely, that's going to be a huge advantage. Another thing, if we're talking about like grappling, right, which MMA is a little bit different, you got to definitely be careful. But leg locks in general, it doesn't really matter how big they are. So if I can get somebody to the ground and start locking in like a heel hook, this big old guy, well, his ACL is about the same size as mine. Actually, his is probably still bigger. He's huge, but I still have a chance of leg locking. But realistically, number one thing is I try to get behind somebody. If you can get behind them, get on their back, you got a chance of submitting anybody.
Yeah. Makes sense, right? Get somewhere where you're safer, right? He's not going to hit you with that 12-pound sledgehammer, right? And utilize your skills to almost attack a limb versus going after the whole individual.
Yeah, or the neck.
Like.
Again,
Or the neck.
easier said than done.
Sure. Well, yeah.
But,
With the 265, however
yeah.
tall he is,
Yeah.
weighs in at 265, probably walks around higher.
But no, realistically, I'm going to get my gun. And
Yeah, there you go.
There's your best defense.
Like I said, I'm getting behind you. But Jon Jones is an interesting one, man. I heard Dana, you talked about Dana. I heard Dana say he could have been the LeBron James of mixed martial arts, right? He seems to be a guy that finds himself on the wrong side of things through his choices. But, that's been a sad thing to watch. But what's your take on Jon Jones, man? Clearly dominant. I mean, he's never really lost, right? But his personal life seems to get him.
Definitely, man. And I think, people put, idols or, role models up on a pedestal, but, a lot of them, they'll say, hey, I never chose to be a role model. I just did what I love to do. And really, he happens to be really, really good at it. I would consider him the greatest. I mean, dude, it's just to never have lost, period, like a real loss, right? So he had that one where he got DQ'd, but even then,
but he was smash. I don't remember who it was, but he was smashing him the whole time.
Matt Hamill.
Matt
yeah,
Hamill.
Man. Yeah. So again, that's his one blemish on his record. But even the close fights, he was still always in the fight. You've never really seen him get dominated. He's just so good. But yeah, I mean, he was a young guy coming up. His two brothers play in the NFL, so obviously the genetics are there, and the work ethic, the mentality, that family support system of training hard and whatnot. But it's just, man, to get like arrested that many times, to get your belt stripped, to get caught with this, and then then this drug test and this, and it's like, dude, what are you doing?
Come on, man.
So absolutely, I didn't think of it like that. But if he had been much more clean cut, which, man, more power. That shows how hard it must be, or hard or whatever for LeBron. I mean, to not really have any kind of skeletons in the closet that we know of. He hasn't really had scandals, man. There's something to be said about that in years and years. And we've been watching LeBron since he was a teenager. It's crazy. And you see somebody like Jones, which again, in all fairness to him, I think a lot more people would probably fall into Jones's. Like, they're gonna make mistakes, man. You get money for the first time, you get fame, you have access to these resources, and just so many people kind of loving you and adoring you, and then he makes mistakes. Like a lot of us make mistakes.
I put it like this: he's made a lot of mistakes. The one that got me, man, is when I think he ran into like a hit and run type situation. It was a pregnant lady, and he bailed. Like, he just ran away. Whatever the case may be, that one kind of. It made me think of him a little different. Again, I don't know the situation. But I come back to this is he's a fighter. Like, you got to be a little bit, I don't want to say crazy, but you're a different mentality than a LeBron James. Yes, that's hard, and yes, you can get hurt. But to get locked into a cage with another individual, it's fighting, man. So to be that role model that maybe he never set out to be, maybe he didn't ever think of it like that. And they tell you there's a classic line that don't meet your heroes or something like that, because they're just people like the rest of us, and they have a different image. But I got him in that fight too. I think he'd be able to handle it, weather the storm, and then utilize his wrestling, his jiu-jitsu to put him away. Yeah,
definitely, man. And you're right, man. I mean, to be able to, again, it's one thing to take fights. Like, hey, I want to fight. I've met many people through the years who their goal was, I just want to do one MMA fight. That's different than somebody who's like, I want this to be my career. This is my life. I want to get in there. I want to be UFC champion. Because you realize to get to that point, you have to be willing to not only get locked in that cage, but to stand right in front of another person who's trying to take your head off. And as much as you're trying to be technical, to succeed at that highest level of MMA, you have to be willing to take those shots and give them right back, right? Most people, they get hit, I don't like this, I'm going to stay on the outside, right? I want to stay away. And it is a smart strategy. But to really win at that top level, you have to have that chin, and you have to be willing to take the shots, as well as obviously put all the other training in and everything else. But that does take a special kind of person. That's not I don't think that is kind of normal. Your average person doesn't, like you said, or is intimidated to step into a jiu-jitsu gym, much less to get locked into a cage, much less to do that for years for tons and tons of fights. So that's just, it is a different kind of breed. So you got to think that there's a little bit of an X factor there for Jon Jones. Not to make excuses for him. I think that's the worst thing. All the stuff that he's done is horrible.
But he's a cage fighter. You know, like he's getting arrested and he lives in Vegas. You know, this guy, whatever people are into, cool. The running from the scene, man. That one I was like,
they said, and that he came back and he grabbed like a stack of cash. He grabbed like a weed, like a bowl, and or he grabbed some drugs and then left the bowl. It was something I was like, dude, come on. There's a pregnant lady in the van right there, and you got to be seeing her, and you're running. Like people know who you are.
If you've been in trouble before, and it's your car, they're gonna find you. But if you've been in trouble before, it shows you his first instinct was like, shit, I messed up. Like I gotta get out of here. Like I'm bailing. But yeah, he's a cage fighter, man. I cut him some slack, I guess. I cut him some slack. But the fact that, when I heard Dana say that he could have been the LeBron, because he had Nike was sponsoring him. I think they dropped him, after all that stuff. He had, one of the first big guys to get those names. But when you become a world champion and then you're that way for that long, and you can relate to this, everybody's looking at you, and then like you have to know that everybody's looking at you and everybody's coming at you. That's got to be a different mentality in itself, knowing that now everybody's gunning for what you have, right?
Absolutely, man, and on multiple levels. And so I can relate with him just on the all of a sudden, like before you know it, you're just doing what you love to do, and then you kind of blink and years have gone by and you're a role model. Like I was your stereotypical, wrestler with my friends. We like to go out and party, drink, have a good time. And this was, a hobby I was passionate about. I loved it. But before I knew it, because I was good, I got invited to start teaching just a couple classes, right? And then you kind of have some people, Jason's tough. But before you know it, now I'm competing at bigger tournaments and bigger. And then I'm an owner of the gym and then teaching more. And then I have more. And literally, and then, and I hadn't even really taught kids years ago. Then it was probably 12 years ago, I started teaching some kids. Before I know it, our kids program is much bigger. The 4-year-olds are now 10-year-olds, and then the 8-year-olds are now teenagers in my adult classes. And
that's cool.
All these people, and you're seeing kind of like just time has gone by, and everybody's looking at me like, okay, what do I do next? Or Jason's our role model. And I'm like, I had to really kind of make that switch of where it's not just about me and training and me to get better, to like, no, it's about my students. Like, and it's so much more rewarding to give back and to kind of help them and use my life experiences to help them. But I mean, for real, I was doing this for fun. And it just through the years, I had to learn like, oh man, like people are looking up to me. I can't do the same things I used to do. I can't make these mistakes like I used to. I need to really kind of hold myself to a higher standard now, because I don't want to set a bad example.
Right.
And it did help when I got married, you kind of calm down a little bit. But the big thing was when I had my kid, and when I had my son, then it's not just for the students. Is literally I'm programming this little thing here next to me on how to be, how a man should act, what a man should do. And if I lose my cool every time I'm frustrated, well, he's going to lose his cool. If I yell, if I raise my voice, if I do certain things, if I'm out here being risky and doing dumb things, that he's going to do that. He's literally kind of mirroring what I'm doing. So that really opened my eyes, and it made it a lot easier for me to just kind of settle into this new kind of dynamic where, hey, I'm okay being the role model. I'm okay being kind of the head. Because for a while it was awkward for me to be the boss, to be the head instructor, because I always kind of was just like to slide by and just kind of under the radar. And now there's a lot of people looking to me. And so I kind of found my voice through the academy, and then through being a father as well,
I can relate to that wholeheartedly, man. Kids and people, everyone says this, they change it. If you let them, there's some people that maybe don't have that same mindset, and then, there ends up being a cycle of whatever. We don't have to get down that road. But kids, for me, it was a no-brainer that I'm not as important as I thought I was, coming into this, because like you said, now you got this individual that's they're going to have their own life, and you want to give them that everything they can in the beginning in the right way. Not just, you see people that just, shelter their kids and give them all the money and all the everything in the world, but sometimes those end up being maybe not the best adult that you would want them to be in some cases. So I can relate to you on the kid side of things, man.
Definitely. And what I've really loved is I love my kid more than anything in the world, man. I mean, literally would do anything for that guy. But it's teaching him. It's literally, they're a sponge, and they're not only going to mirror you, but what you say to them matters and how you say it. So a lot of the books that I read, where I love that I can kind of overlap in my career, right? Everything that I'm learning to improve myself is going to help my students improve. It's going to help my employees. It's going to help my training partners, and it's going to help my wife and my son, right? My family. So things that I'm learning that's going to help even my fighters, hey, this growth mindset or developing good habits, right? Or taking losses as learning experiences, right? Is all going to my son so I can kind of reinforce those lessons for him. And it started because I have this desire to learn. I want to grow still. And it just kind of spreads out. So I get to really have kind of multiple ways to help improve other people, even though it started with that desire just for me.
Yeah.
But things like, for example, you don't want a kid to kind of think that they're either smart or they're not, or they're either good at a sport or not. That's kind of what they call like a fixed mindset. Yeah. So simple things, when my son does something right, instead of saying, oh man, good job, you're so good at that, you kind of want to praise their effort or their work ethics. Man, that's so awesome. You worked so hard and look how well you did now. Yeah. Or man, I can tell you've been practicing so much and then look how good you did, man. You're right. You should be proud of yourself, kind of thing. Yeah. So just the wording, now you're programming him that it's my work ethic that I need to work on. It's not that I did good, because then if my dad always says, hey, great job, you're smart, great job, you succeeded, then when I fail, I must be a failure. No, it's great job on your work ethic. And then when I fail, it's, I just need more work ethic, right? I just need to work harder. So it's these little things that I pick up for my students or for my son or for myself or vice versa. It kind of just overlaps in everything. And it really helps, my employees and building the culture here with my students. In a weird way, I'm teaching martial arts, but I feel like a motivational speaker some days, because I'm just up here, man, just preaching, guys, let's focus on our mindset. You
motivate me talking to you, man. But I can relate to you, because what a cool life you built, man, because you have all that overlap, and it is something that you've been passionate about for a long time. And I talk about this a lot on here. Chasing money for me became the problem, right? You got to make this money, you got to have that, you got to have that, different priorities at the time, right? But now I like what you said about always trying to grow your own mind and then utilizing that in your circle, your family, your community, your academy, whatever the case may be. So what a cool life you built here, man. I mean, you probably didn't draw it out this way, but such is life, right? I mean, adapting as you go.
Yeah. I mean, really, completely just... you call it a coincidence, you call it, somebody looking down from above and looking out for me, which is what I wholeheartedly believe, man, is again, I kind of just went all in with what I wanted to do. My passion was just competing, martial arts, be it wrestling and then jiu-jitsu and MMA, just whatever I was doing, just go all in. And then before I knew it, I kind of blinked. And like I said, I kind of looked around, I was like, oh, like people are looking to me. Oh, I have an academy. Oh, I'm doing what I love to do. Let me cherish this. Let me really nurture this and not just kind of like let this opportunity go by.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people do that. They lose track of what's in front of them because they're thinking about the next 10 things or 10 things in the past, right? Instead of enjoying what it is that you've had and what you've already worked so hard. But yes, and a lot of it is probably luck for individuals. I think luck plays a big role in people's life, being in different situations. But I think what I learned from you, man, and others like you, is that the work you put into things separates anything, man. I think there's some people don't realize how hard it is to get good at anything, whatever it is you want to get good at. But the more time and the more energy you apply yourself to it, you can get good at life, and that's, again, reason why I like talking to guys like you and learning this stuff, is because I think you shouldn't stop trying to get at least mentally stronger at things, right? I'm trying to get the courage to get physically stronger at things, but hopefully that's coming.
Yeah, man. And when you kind of do research, and when I do, again, from reading so many books, and you see the overlap, I mean, the recurring theme that you hear is 10,000 hours, right? 10,000 reps. That's kind of like that magic number. Magic, right? So to get good at anything. So even somebody like a Beethoven or like a Bill Gates, or people who people just think are like these geniuses, well, no, they put in their time, man. That's why they got as good as they did, or why we know who they are, is they put in the time, they put in the reps, right? So the dedication is far more important than any kind of natural talent, right? A lot of people think they want that natural talent, but natural talent, right, if they're not working hard, if they're not putting those hours, then when that failure or that adversity hits, they're more likely to kind of quit and feel like, okay, I'm not as good as I thought, right? It's the other person that you're not really thinking about, that's not on your radar, the one who's maybe experienced failure or struggle from an early age, or early on in whatever their endeavor was. They're losing, they're not working out the way they want, but they realize at an early age that I just need to try again, kind of short memory, forget about those losses, and just keep working hard. Those are the ones that over time, it's the hare and the turtle, right? There's your story right there. Not to say you want to be a turtle, but you just want to know that, hey, I just got to try again, just try again. And I feel like I never planned on that. I never thought I would be here. I never thought I'd have an academy. Never thought I'd have my name on the wall ever, right? It's just, I lost so much. I struggled so much early on. And all I knew was that if I just kind of worked hard, that I could get a little bit more recognition, that I could beat one person maybe in wrestling and as a 15-year-old. And if I won that one little match, got my hand raised, that like people were happy. Like my parents were cheering. They were happy for the first time their son, right, was actually winning and doing something that he enjoyed. Yeah. And well, let me work a little bit harder. And at the time, right, it's easier when you're a teenager. I was able to go all in. So, what I kind of experienced through my life, I'm now getting reaffirmation from reading these books. I'm like, oh, there's studies on this. There's been research done. They've asked thousands of people in similar situations to me, or they followed them. And there's actually a method to this. This isn't just, unique to me. Not that I thought the hard work was unique to me, but this is the mindset. And I never planned on having a growth mindset. I just didn't like where I was before. And I just wanted to, I just wanted more. I just wanted to be better, right? And it wasn't always about money. It still isn't about money. I just love this. I just want to do this. There's absolutely things that I could do to make more money. I love this. And even if I was scraping by, I wouldn't change my life for anything. I have no regrets. There's things I could have done differently, or that I could have, expanded or moved or done whatever. And it's like, I love where I'm at. And even though it's not, the best paying job in the world, man, it's what I would do every day for free if I could,
And that's invaluable. You can't put a price on that, man. If this is what you love to do, and not only obviously the financial benefits of owning your own thing and not having to answer to too many people, but just the mental side of knowing what it is you're doing for your fighters, for the community, and for at home, man, that's you can't ask for a better life, in my opinion. And the no regret side for me has been the big thing, which is, I don't want to be 50, 60, 70 years old and be like, man, I wish I would have done that, or I could have done that, right? But I do fear a little bit that certain generations now, because they're coming up in this world where if they're into competitive sports, whether it's soccer, football at a young age, or basketball, right, there's no winners, right? So then there's no losers. And then I try to explain to my kids that losing is such an important part of life, like we've been talking this whole time. So do you find yourself concerned a little bit where in those worlds where they don't allow, I don't know, maybe you've had this with your own son, where I don't like that they don't lose, right? What's your take on that whole?
Yeah, I'm like so far on the other end. Like I'm always like,
I score at those games.
I joke with some of my students who also have kids, because like when I'm playing with my son doesn't have any siblings, right? We have one kid, and so when I'm playing like foosball with him, my son's actually pretty good, man. At 5 years old, he'll play a really good game.
Nice.
But like I'll make it a point to beat him when we're doing certain things. I want him to get used to that, and then say, hey, we just got to work hard. And like I said, I give him that praise when he does do well, when he does win, or sometimes I let him win on certain things, and I'll encourage his work ethic. And I'm trying to kind of embed in him and teach him that losing is, in a weird way, right, is this like secret to success.
Bingo.
Is taking that as a learning opportunity and not being down. Because if he learns that, and if I can program him to think that way, I know that he's just going to keep working hard and pushing out whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
Right. But it's tough, because, you have this kid and you want what's best for them.
Right.
And so you get what's called, my wife's a teacher, and she kind of explained this concept to me. There's what's called a lawnmower parent. And I never heard that. I've heard of helicopter parents. You're kind of always
hovering over top.
Right. Exactly. Lawnmower parent is a parent who wants basically no failure for their kids. They want to cut the lawn so it's nice and smooth, so they have a real easy ride
always
for their
perfect.
kid, right? So they don't have to really deal with the adversity. They don't want their kid to fail. And that can be very dangerous, because you get these kids who aren't used to losing. They aren't used to failing. They aren't used to the kind of bouncing back and learning from those experiences. So very dangerous. I get the mindset. Like I understand what you want, but a lot of times you don't realize that that's detrimental to your kid's future and their mindset.
I don't think that's reality. I get it. I'm with you. You for a long time, especially when they're young, you want to keep them safe and kind of sheltered and protected. You can see that mindset. But if you sit down and think about it, that's not going to help them in the ultimate outcome of their life, in my opinion. What you're talking about, teaching them that you're going to lose. And when you lose, if it's a mistake, okay, well, this is what you can improve on, right? But it's interesting you mentioned beating your children, because I got an 8 and a 6-year-old as well. But it's a fine balance, right? I've read some stuff where people are like, you should never let them win. And I'm like, well, then they're never going to want to do anything with you. But I like it because, and honestly, I think it makes me better at things, whether it's basketball or football or ping pong or whatever it is we're doing, that I can push them to the point to where it starts to make them better, right? You can see their improvements a little bit, but you can't let them win at everything, but you can't beat them at everything too, right? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. No, again, there has to be the balance. Of course, I would never just beat him every time at everything. No, because he does get excited. And then that is my chance to kind of praise him and, hey, you worked really hard and you did great and all that. But it is funny because, you're playing with your kids and you want them to do well. You want them, okay, what's the best kind of way to teach them, to set them up for success in the future. And there is a delicate balance there. You know what I mean? And then sometimes, for example, okay, my son loves playing Frisbee. I love throwing Frisbee. We always used to play like ultimate Frisbee. I love it, right?
Nice.
When he first started, when at like 3, he would fling it like backwards. Yeah. And he like, I learned early on, I was like, no, you know, I tried to teach him like how to throw it properly, and he wanted nothing to do with it. As soon as I started coaching him, he's like, I don't want to play anymore. So I realized really early on, it's better for him to just enjoy what he's doing, even if he's doing it wrong, because that love for what we're doing is there. And what does every kid do at a certain point? They see what the older kids are doing or the right way to do it, and eventually they become self-motivated. No, I want to do it the right way. That's where they are with everything. Don't help me. I want to do this. I want to do this myself. I can do it, right? But when you try to proactively be like, no, here, let me show you how to do it right, then it takes the fun out of it. They're like, let them just do it on their own time. Yeah. So before I knew it, my son, he had thrown it wrong. He actually got to where he could throw it good, the backwards way. But I like, all of a sudden one day he like grabbed it and he just started throwing it right. Yeah. And now he only wants to do it right. And he's really good because he loves Frisbee. Yeah. So the love for it is much more important that they're doing it right. And then all of a sudden he's associating Frisbee with dad doesn't like that. Dad's kind of giving me this negative association, right? And with jiu-jitsu, I see that all the time. The parents, a lot of times the dad, and we see a lot of this years ago. I've kind of helped corral the parents to get everybody on board with positive reinforcement, more so than like coaching or yelling or kind of what are you doing?
Coaching the parents as much as you're coaching the kids.
Yeah, because you get the dad who wants to live vicariously through the kid, right? And it's like, what are you doing? Get out! And again, this was years ago that we kind of saw this. I used to kind of be more hands off. If the parents wanted to coach, they could coach. And we learned that it's much better to have the parents sit and watch. Let us kind of dish out the positive reinforcement and do the coaching here.
Makes perfect sense.
And what I ask the parents to do is when the kid steps off the mat, hugs. Tell them that you're proud of them. Tell them great job. Tell them they worked hard and you're proud of it. Whatever it is, but all positive reinforcement. Yeah. Because as much as we want what's best for our kids, when they step on the mats, for example, and if you're saying, hey, what are you doing? Get out of there. Don't let them grab that. Roll them over. Stop. And all you're doing is thinking you're helping them. Well, what do they associate? They associate every time I come into this building, right? This building with these logos, right? Coach, American Top Team, right? I come here. My dad isn't happy, right? Or my mom is telling me that I'm doing something wrong, right? Or... right? You come in and you let them mess up. You let them do the move wrong. You let them get put in a bad position. And when they come off the mat, you give them hugs and kisses. Now, what do they think? Every time I come here, my parents are hugging me, they're kissing me. And what happens? You fast forward a year, they're going to learn how to do it right eventually, right? And we over here as coaches are telling them what to do right or how to improve or whatever it is. But you need to keep that relationship with them as strong as you can, and them to know that you're proud of them, that you're happy that they came in here and they tried their best. That's what we're looking for. Then the association kicks in that this is a positive place, and before you know it, the lessons will sink in after a year, after 2 years, or however long it is. Yeah.
People learn all in different ways, right? There's all kinds of studies and books on that too, right? What I found, and I think I told you in the past, I used to have a large team. You know, my largest team of employees was like 1,000 people, right? What I found is that people learned and accepted things better when they figured it out on their own. Versus you just, and I was curious if you see this in coaching, whether you're just telling them, do this, do that, or the parents, right? It doesn't work that way. And even if it takes longer for those individuals to see the right way, it sticks more and it's more beneficial and impactful if they figure it out for themselves. And I know I'm the same way. If somebody just tells me to do something, I'm not going to do it just because they say it. But if I'm like, oh man, I should do this for whatever reason, it sticks with me better. But do you find that similar mentality here, that when people learn things on their own, it sticks with them longer, whether it's in training or
Absolutely. And I think that there's like a specific teaching and learning practice within that. So when we teach, we try to, of course, there's a lot of moves, like individual techniques. Say we're learning this move, but I really try to pull concepts. When you teach someone a concept, then they can figure things out on their own in the future than if you teach them individual moves. Okay. Right. So if the concept is, leverage from a certain position, then even though we're learning the specific move today, when I break down a concept, you may be in a completely different position in the future and remember that concept. Oh, I can off balance them from this position with using this leverage or whatever it is. Yeah. So absolutely, like there's a strategy to that, because now if I'm learning a lot of concepts and I figure something out on my own, much more rewarding, much more likely for me to remember, to stick, and be self-motivated to do it. Whereas if coach just says, do this because I said so, you're like, well, yeah, you'll do it. We're in here to get better. I get it. Like, people are going to do what the coach says they should, but it's not as rewarding and it doesn't stick as much as concepts do.
Right. And that sometimes takes longer, I'm sure, to teach a concept than it is to show somebody a specific move. So it seems like, and I've been telling this to my kids, the longer game plays, if there's a short-term gain, it's very rarely like the good thing, right? The longer-term stuff, the stuff that takes work and the harder things to accomplish seem to be more beneficial in whatever it is you're talking about, right? So
definitely that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. So just understanding that it's going to be hard now, but just kind of that long play, and anything worth doing is worth doing right kind of thing. So
for sure.
Yeah, you start getting into all these famous quotes, but I mean, there's a reason why, people remember them. They're good,
I say that all the time. There's a reason why quotes are a thing, and there's a reason why these phrases have stuck around for forever, because there might be a little bit of truth behind some of those things. But well, listen, man, this was awesome again. Again, I truly look at like when I get to talk to people, I look at their lives, and man, it's just impressive what you've done and what you've accomplished and what you've built for yourself, man. I think there's so many people that they never find that, man, and maybe it leads to unhappiness or leads to poor decision making or whatever the case may be. So when I get the chance to talk to people like yourself, I feel fortunate, because it just makes me want to do more things and be better in my own life, man. So I appreciate you taking the time and doing this again. But anything else that we would maybe want to cover that we didn't? I know we went on a lot of different
No, we did
things,
a lot, man. And again, I'm grateful. Thank you for the opportunity, man, for the platform, because I get to talk to my students a lot of times of certain things, but to be able to sit down and go deeper into kind of my philosophy or what I believe and my story, it really is helpful to get the word out a little bit more. And again, my students who get to listen to this, or people who don't know me, get to hear these stories, and hopefully it does motivate some people, man, because again, this is my story. I didn't plan it. It's not how I thought it was going to work out, but I'm so grateful. And I just know that I'm here because I went all in with something that I believed in, something that I was passionate about. And so if people remember one thing, it's, man, just go for it. You only live once, man, and life is really short, man. And if you don't go for it, you don't want to have those regrets. Right. It's the number one thing you hear people say when they're on their deathbed is they wish they had done certain things, or they didn't, or whatever it was. And for me, it's proof in the pudding. This is proof of concept. I went all in. It worked out. Maybe it doesn't work out, but again, it's a learning experience. Don't be afraid to fail. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And if you ever want to do it again, man, I'm open. Anytime I get to talk to you. And again, I share this with everybody else I talk to. I was out fishing the other day, and I got beat in a competition, and I thought of you, man. My first fishing competition, I got beat by like a 58-year-old lady. She smoked me. It was a whole gimmick, man. It's a long story, but I caught 10 fish. She just happened to catch 13. But it's a long story. But I truly thought of you, and I told him I was coming back to talk to you, because the championship mindset is that it takes hard work. You're going to lose. Not many people are Jon Jones and never lose in your life. You might get lucky and get to that point, man. But I really enjoyed the time. And if you ever want to do it again, man, we'll do it again.
Definitely, man. I want to mention it. It does say right up there, a quote from my instructor: "You only lose when you quit." Right? So
there you go.
Just keep trying again, and you have another chance the next time.
I like it, man. Awesome. Well, there you go.
Thanks.
Yeah.